I want to talk now with our brilliant legal and political minds, defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Shan Wu, CNN political commentator Karen Finney, and former senior advisor to the Trump 2024 campaign, Brian Lanza. My lawyer friend, we start with you here on the legality issue. Trump's floating the Insurrection Act. The question whether it's legal is up in the air for some reason now, knowing that I'm not sure Insurrection actually qualifies here. But what do you think? Is it illegal for the president to try to use that law?
So I think it's legal to try and use that law. He has the power. But here's the issue. I think it's a really great moment for us here. The trial courts, as that judge in Oregon said, that Trump's claims are simply untethered to the facts, the trial courts are revealing the truth for the country. And that's what they do. They're triers of fact. They find the facts. And the facts are going to show whether or not there's any basis to claiming all this violence and rampaging going on. And I find that such an interesting contrast to the Supreme Court, which is frantically trying to shortcut fact-finding by taking all these emergency orders on their shadow docket. And that's what's really going on here. We're going to see actual fact-finding, what the judges are going to find, versus the sort of lofty legal principles of can the executive invoke the Insurrection Act.
But isn't part of the point also that they're going to determine the facts of whether or not what is happening meet the legal requirement in the statute around when you may then invoke the Insurrection Act? I mean, the president is making certain claims, and the theory, right, in the courts, they're trying to determine, well, does it really meet that standard, which is a legal proceeding. I don't think it's a legal insurrection. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how the courts work. Yes?
It was, and I'm sure hopefully again at some point, of course. But thinking about it, you're both right, in fact, in thinking about what the courts are supposed to look at and then what they are considering as well in terms of the overall aspect of it. And yet there's the political notion of it too. I mean, there's the should you, the can you, and the what if you do. What's the consequence politically? I mean, are you concerned at all about the idea of a military presence in some of these cities if it's untethered to the facts?
I think everybody should be concerned. Listen, a lot of this feels like where we live in George Floyd, Black Lives Matter moments, where we had these massive protesters all across the country, and law enforcement, mayors, governors in certain blue states did nothing to quell those protesters, and they got violent. It feels like, it feels like we're reliving some of these things all over again.
You didn't
think it got violent? You didn't see Portland burn during Black Lives Matter?
Just
checking.
Okay, but our very own correspondent who is in Portland, who was on in the last hour, showed that it's like 50 people, some of whom...
No, I understand that, but you're conflating what I said. I said George Floyd, the protesters during George Floyd. Exactly, that's what I said. I said they're responding to George Floyd, and in the matter it's not George Floyd.
4 years later?
Correct. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of why, because remember, Tom Cotton during the George Floyd protest, he said President Trump should send in the troops to deal with this. And the administration didn't send it in. Now they feel like they're going to stop anything that gets any type of oxygen so we don't repeat what took place in George Floyd. And if it means we send in the military, ultimately the courts are going to make those decisions. That's the way the process is.
I mean, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we do have some footage of what it's like there. I mean, this is where things are right now. This is Portland right now, outside of an ICE facility in Portland. I mean,
do you think they're peaceful?
I don't see violence in the moment. But my point, Shan, what about your thoughts on this? Because the suggestion that essentially you want to nip it in the bud in order to not to get to, I think your point is, to get to how it was at the different points. Is that something, though, I mean, constitutionally speaking, to invoke the, Insurrection Act comes if there's an insurrection. The idea of having military troops go into an area, there is a standard. And the idea of simply trying to prevent what could be just, if that's where it stops there, just protesting under the First Amendment, that's a conflict.
That is a conflict. I mean, the concept of nipping an insurrection in the bud is really quite dangerous because you can decide when you want to nip it and it becomes simply suppression of people exercising their constitutional rights. And no matter what standard you use, you're not going to meet that standard if there's literally nothing like that happening.
I mean, it would have been nice if President Trump cared about that on January 6th when there actually was an insurrection, but let's set that aside. I think it's interesting, though, politically, in Brian's talking points, that he would say George Floyd, because Portland is one, that is another city that is on Trump's list, and what was happening in the country around George Floyd was something, as we know, he wanted to deploy the military on American streets against American citizens and was stopped by some of our military leaders. So I think we have to take a step back because what's happening in Portland is not even the most egregious. What happened over the weekend in Chicago, or late last week, is one of the most disgusting displays of abuse of power I think we've ever seen in this country. And I think we have to ask ourselves why this is happening. And it tends to be happening in places where Donald Trump does not have political control. Now, he may disagree with how the mayors and governors in those areas are handling their cities, but they were duly elected by the people of that city. And how he's saying he knows better than them, even better than the police chiefs, how to handle what's going on. And again, when we're talking about American children and seniors being zip tied on the side of the street in the middle of the night, as some have said, some of these kids were buck naked. That is a disgusting display of an abuse of power.
Yeah, that's irreparable harm. I mean, I think when you're talking about TROs, preliminary injunctions, you look at the harm issue. The Supreme Court, hate to keep railing on them, they just get it wrong. Their idea of harm is, there's this lofty theoretical harm to the executive branch's power. That's harm. When you are pulling innocent citizens out, zip tying them, kids without clothes, grabbing people, firing pepper canisters, that's harm. And I think the governor's brief put it really well, which is that's harm to the sovereignty of the state. And you're going to contrast that with this lofty harm.
Talking about this, yes, I hear your point. Talking about the sovereignty issue, though, because Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, he is creating what he's calling these ICE-free zones. We've heard about this, which ban federal immigration agents from using city-owned property to carry out the operations. Does Chicago have the legal authority to create these zones?
I think they do, and it kind of goes to the concept of the sanctuary city issue. I mean, there can be legal challenges to what they're doing, but they should be legal challenges, and that's what to watch for, is let it play out in the courts and let that be tested. If the feds are going to argue supremacy clause, you're somehow interfering with our ability to act federally, that's fine. They can argue that, but it needs to get played out in the courts.
Speaking of the courts, I mean, Stephen Miller, this is how he described the protests in Illinois and Oregon. Listen.
This is the textbook definition of domestic terrorism, using the actual and imminent threat of violence to keep federal officials from doing their jobs. And unless we send in troops and resources, then we will continue to bleed federal law enforcement resources in these street battles. It's absurd, it's unconstitutional, and must be put down.
Do you think that's incendiary?
Yeah, but I think that's what he wants it to be, right? He wants to get the message to the community of those areas that that behavior is not going to be tolerated anymore. At some point, we're going to hit a trigger point where reinforcements, more resources are going to come in. I think that's the whole point of what Stephen's trying to do.
But he's also, I mean, our own reporting has shown that part of what we're seeing is that it's been eternally called the California strategy, where part of the goal is to send in ICE to incite violence from people, which is part of why you're hearing. So hold on, let me finish. This is part of why you're hearing so many of the political leaders in these cities calling on people to stay calm, don't engage with ICE, just go about your business. But we're seeing over and over again. I mean, think about if someone rolls up on you. 4 white guys rolling up on people. They don't identify themselves. They don't have.
Episode.
They don't. This one was in a hospital. They don't identify themselves. They don't have credentials. They don't have any kind of
hold on.
warrants.
You're saying if that happened to you, you'd have a violent episode?
I mean, I'm not going to sit back when somebody unidentified just comes and charges my car.
So do you agree with the
understand
ICE
that.
agents not having anything
I mean,
that's
listen,
anonymity?
I don't know what ICE's due process is in this point, whether these citizens have the right to due process or others don't. But I know as an American citizen, I do have rights, right? And those things come forward and you have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, I think the important thing to realize is the reason ICE is in these cities is because local cities have decided not to cooperate with our immigration laws, with our federal system, which the voters overwhelmingly voted in support. So Donald Trump is going into these cities, Dem-run cities.
Those voters of those cities elected those leaders knowing what their policies were.
And the country elected President Trump to enforce immigration laws. He didn't hide what he was going to do. He was pretty clear what he said. And they said, yes, this is what we want.
I will say, Control saying that the Michigan, but the Lake Michigan is a border. That's why he's allowed to be there. Come on.
I'm looking at the fact, the polling right now, 58% oppose. I wonder if the so-called mandate sticks. Thank you. You have more to talk about. Still ahead.